So the purpose of creating this series is that I'll be creating a web application from scratch using a REST-based API and microservices. This application will be distributed, scalable, and will also deal with persisting data. And the approach would be basic and simple as possible. So we'll be creating a post application where the user would create posts and will also be able to comment to those posts. And as a non-functional requirement, each operation would generate events, and those events will be persisted for performing analytical queries. And the services that would be involved are post service, where the user will be able to create posts, user service, comment service, and events consumer service. The events consumer service will be responsible for storing the events in a time series database. The tech stack that we'll be using is Spring Boot 3.5, Maven for building the project, Log4j2 for logging purposes, Lombok for extra annotations, and for persistence we'll be using Spring Data and Hibernate. As a message queue, we'll be using Kafka, and for deployments we'll be using Docker and Kubernetes. From the database perspective, we'll be using CockroachDB for SQL, Redis and Hazelcast for cache, Cassandra, MongoDB, Elasticsearch, and TimescaleDB for NoSQL data, and MinIO as an object store for storing blob data for images and videos. The prerequisite for this would be, as far as the primary prerequisites are concerned, it'll require Spring Boot 3, Hibernate, Git, SQL, and as a secondary prerequisite, it will require Docker and Kubernetes. Let's take a look at the system design for this post application. And as far the requirements are concerned, we'll have post application. The functional requirements would be user creates post, user comments on posts. The non-functional requirements would be create events data, persist events data. This would be for each operation. And as far the entities are concerned, we'll have a user, posts, comments, and events. As far as the API is concerned, based on the above entities, we would have a get API to get user posts and comments by ID. Then you have post API or add, delete, and update. That'll be put, and this will be post API. As far as the diagram is concerned, we would have a client that'll be connecting to a post service. And this would store data in a database. Now, This would be a simple diagram, but we need to split up the post service into three separate services based on each entity. So we have post service and a user service, and comment service. And in order to connect to these service, the client would be made to go through an API gateway and a load balancer. Go a little further, and we would put a API gateway in between the client and application. Along with a load balancer. And the client would connect to the API gateway, which would again connect to the load balancer, and the load balancer would be connecting to these services. As far as the DB is concerned, I would split this into a database, and there will be multiple database that we'll be using for the application. And this would be a database along with a cache. This will also have events consumer service that will consume the events, and store the data in a time series database. Now we need to specify the data that will be going in each of the tables. The user would have an ID, which will be of type UID, first name of type string or text, last name of type text. Will have a username and an email ID. Then I'll have a post, which will have ID, a title, description, and I'll also have a user ID who is responsible for creating the post, and this will be a UUID and a foreign key to the user ID of the user table. I'll have a comments that'll have an ID. It won't have a title, but it'll have a description. A user ID who have put on the comment, and a post ID to which the comment relates to. So this will be a post ID to the post table. As far as the diagram is concerned, this will do the trick.